Hello, thanks for joining in. So today in the shop I have a 1954 Raleigh Sports Tourist. It's a bike that came in from the thrift store. Unfortunately, someone had a go at painting it flat black, and there's obviously lots of overspray on things other than the frame. And so I'm going to do my best to make this bike kind of look, usable for somebody. The goal in this is to keep the bike from getting scrapped, and also to make some money for their thrift store so they can continue their mission to feed those in need. This video is going to be more along the lines of a refurb and not a restoration. I'm going to try to keep the bike as original as possible. Obviously it's been altered with this spray paint that's been added to it, and it's got quite a bit of rust and such, but I'm not going to try to restore it. I'm just simply going to try to make it look nicer than it is now, and obviously ride well too. I really don't know a lot about these old Raleighs, and I don't have a lot of experience working on them, so it will be kind of fun to see what these bikes are like, and also take a test ride afterwards to see how it rides. I almost didn't want to work on this bike, and they were actually going to just try to sell it as is for $40, but I don't know. I picked it up and brought it home to see what I could do with it. The best I can tell, this bike is completely original in that I don't think any parts have been replaced on it, at least the best I can tell. My first assessment is that the bike drivetrain does seem to be working correctly. Does seem to be shifting gears as it should. There is a scrape that you're hearing from the chain guard, which I really have no experience with these chain guards, yeah. And here we have a close-up of this little wheel that's for the cable that's driving the shifting, the hub, and it seems to be working pretty well. And here's another close-up, and this is in the axle itself, showing the where the cable comes into this little mini chain that goes into the hub and actuates a little piston, and beyond that I don't really know how the hub works itself. The main complaints are that the brakes didn't work very well, and that the seat was flopping. It wasn't really attached very well. To remove that crank rub, I simply took the chain guard and manipulated it so that the noise was not present anymore. I decided to start at the handlebars with removing the paint, because I knew this is definitely an area I wanted paint removed, and here I'm using isopropyl alcohol and a Scotch-Brite pad, and that does remove it, but it is a little bit of effort. It wasn't too much though. It worked better than I thought. The bar has definitely got some pitting underneath it, but I think for a classic bike like this, even if the chrome is pitted, it's better than this kind of flat black look across the whole bike. Something this age, I don't think it's a bad thing for it to show its age a little bit. That's just me. And we got some lacquer thinner, and that definitely cuts it off a lot faster. That's probably the way to go, actually. Lacquer thinner is taking this off very easily. In fact, I may not even need the abrasive. I was too lazy to pull out the compressor, so I used the trick with isopropyl alcohol. I just used a small screwdriver to create a gap, and then just take a pipette and put some 91% isopropyl alcohol in there, squirt it in and work it in, and then the grip came off pretty easily. Next I take off the right brake lever, and The wrench doesn't quite fit perfectly, but it's okay. It's kind of weird, the sizing of fasteners on this bike, I find. Next up is the shifter, and this is where I probably should have just left the brake and the shifter on instead of taking them off. Here I break the fastener.
Nice job, Ted.
I don't think I applied that much pressure, so it must have been corroded. I say I probably should have left them on because with the lacquer thinner, it comes off so easily. I think I could have just gotten it off with those components in place. So indeed, on the left side, I decided just to leave the brake lever in place, and it seemed to clean up fine.
I'm going to try to use isopropyl alcohol on this so I don't damage the script on the shifter here. And on a rag instead of with a Scotch-Brite pad. And it seems to be coming pretty clean. I pretty much got all that off.
So next I moved to the brake calipers and back to the lacquer thinner, and I got it on a rag now. And that seems to take it off pretty well, although I do switch to a Scotch-Brite pad. I find that you have to use quite a bit of lacquer thinner. Whatever rag or Scotch-Brite pad has to be really saturated with it because you really are dissolving the paint. If you just have it kind of damp with the lacquer thinner, it just doesn't really work very well. You can see I am wearing gloves. Lacquer thinner is, probably seeps into the skin and probably isn't the best thing to have on your hands. And because it's harsher, I moved back to isopropyl alcohol for the seat.
This is isopropyl alcohol on this, and I'm going to try to be as gentle as I can, but this seat got spray painted. This is the biggest head scratcher in this whole thing. Is you're probably going to end up with a black pair of shorts, or if you were to ride this thing with the paint on it. Easy to get paint off a flat surface, but leather is like a really complex surface, and it absorbs things, and a lot of the paint's going to remain. I think this is a black saddle originally, so that helps that it was painted the same color. And now we're working with some leather product cleaner. This is probably not in the Brooks description of how to treat their saddles, but they probably would tell you to replace this at this point.
So using that leather cream probably was a mistake. This saddle was already really soft, and it has a real oily feel to it now. So next I'm going to pull the saddle off the bike and investigate why the seat tilts so easily whenever you're riding it.
Yeah, it seems to be coming free. This seat has a problem with tilting very easy. I'm just going to take this whole seat off and clean up the clamp and find out what's going on with it. Clamp's a little bit different than a standard one because of the way the springs are in this. You got this kind of similar to other ones, but you can see these side pieces here are quite a bit different, and then you got just washers here on the side. I think I'm just going to take this apart and clean it up, try to get rid of some of this rust, and then put it back together, and hopefully we'll have something that works. Yeah. penetrating fluid is already kind of dissolving some of this rust anyway. I'm not going to take the whole bike apart like this. I'm basically just trying to fix, you know, the problems on the bike and then make it like it's somewhat cosmetically reasonable. Upon further inspection and doing a little more cleaning and kind of trying to scrape it off with a razor blade, I really think that this surface is just glazed. You can see this one isn't nearly as bad.
Here I'm just cleaning up the underneath of the seat, the springs and everything. Next I start cleaning up the seat post, remove some of this rust. I got a wire wheel here on a Dremel, and then I moved to some steel wool. I think the steel wool actually worked a little bit better. So I found another clamp, just that little centerpiece in my collection, and I chose to use that because the knurled pieces are not damaged on that one. And it seemed to fit okay. It's a little bit tighter with the seat post than the old one, but I think it's going to work out all right. Then I bring that assembly over and mount it on the bike. Added a little grease beforehand just so that we don't have any problems in the future with it seizing up. I sped up the footage on this because, you know, mounting seats generally tends to be an iterative process where you're not really happy with the way it is, and then you have to loosen it and tighten it back up again, and it just would be a little bit too tedious to watch it in normal speed. Then I install the seat post bolt and nut, tighten that up, and then I give it a good yank to see how well it works, and it seems to be holding pretty well. Next I remove some outer cabling that is around the brake cable. I don't know exactly, it must have been just to protect it, I guess. So next I take some lacquer thinner on a rag and carefully remove the paint. I'm really careful with this to not really go too far with it. My worry was to damage the decals, and they seem like they're okay. They're not perfect, obviously. This is an old bike, but they seem like they're all right. Next up is to remove the paint off the back caliper. And as the front, it seems to come off pretty well. These calipers actually look like they're in pretty good shape. The brake surfaces had a lot of rust on it, and so I took a Dremel with a sandpaper drum on it and removed that rust the best I could. This was actually took quite a bit of time, and I didn't get it all off perfectly, but it's okay. So next I take off the back brake cable, take it off the bike completely, and then try to oil it. You can't get these brake cables based on what I saw in another video, and so it's best to just recondition what you have. There's actually fixtures soldered on both ends of the cable, so they are a bit odd. There's some missing detail here, but I'll show the front brake cable a little bit more thoroughly. They're just some spring clips that hold the cable onto the top tube. And the end result seems to be pretty good. This front brake seems to be working pretty well, which the back one wasn't. I think the poor braking was really just all the oxidation on the rim surfaces. The first thing I do is loosen up the brakes by turning the adjuster, and that allows me to get the unbolt that whole mechanism from the brake. Then I take the cable over to the bench and add some tri-flow on both sides and kind of work it in back and forth. Most of the oxidation usually happens at the very cable ends. These cables are definitely not in the best of shape.
You can see the tri-flow is kind of dissolving some of this rust. Yeah, it's starting to feel a little better now.
Next, I take some lacquer thinner and I'm just going to clean up the cable outsides, both the dirt and then also some of the overspray from the black paint that was on the bike. I think overall they turned out okay. They're a little rough, but they're old. So now I'm putting the cable back on the bike, just the opposite of the removal process. Pretty simple. The front brake went a lot smoother than the back brake. I kind of understood the system and what I need to do to take it on and off. And so it's really simple actually once you get it. I don't think you can buy these cables new, and unless someone refurbs them, I think your only option is to work with what you got or find some old cables off another bike. So the brakes seem to work okay, and there's a little adjuster. It's pretty simple to bring the pads in and do the adjustment. There's really not much to adjust on this system. I did shave the brake blocks on the front. They weren't worn flat. And next up, I replaced that bolt that I snapped on that's holding the shifter clamp. I even found a flathead bolt and installed that so that it looks somewhat original, even though it's a little different. Next, I lubricate the shifter, see if I can get it working a little bit smoother. Just some chain lube. I'm not sure I really did much to improve it by doing that. I think it was already lubricated, but it didn't hurt it. So next I want to get in and clean the chain. There's a little access port at the very back corner of the chain guard, which I think is for basically allowing you to clean the chain. Doesn't give you like really great access. There's a couple plates that are on the inside that fall out too. So next I'm showing removing this clamp, which I really didn't need to do, and I end up just putting it back on later, as you see. I sprayed some penetrating fluid along this to try to free it up. And so the other access point is this, I think they call this a pie plate that covers up the chain ring. The design of the chain ring is really pretty cool. Those are herons, and yeah, this is just kind of stuff you don't see these days. Next up, I clean the chain. After spraying penetrant on the chain, I take the brush from Park Tool and use both ends of it, first using the bristle brush on the chain itself, and then I try to like basically work out some of the stuff that's around that rear cog. It's not real easy to clean the chain on this. I thought about actually taking the chain guard off, which is kind of why I took that clamp off in the first place, but I realized it was probably going to be quite a bit of work. And so I just really try to clean it the best I could using the access port. And so now I'm putting that clamp back on. I also want to point out having a nice a bike stand is nice. Having this upside down, the bike, and it's totally stable. It was really helped in doing this. And while it's upside down, I decided to go ahead and clean this bottom bracket area here that probably hasn't seen much cleaning lately. Try to get the towel on both ends in different locations and just pull back and forth. It's probably about the best you can really do unless you take the bike apart. So now I'm putting the chain cover back on. There's just two fasteners, one on the back and one towards the bottom. This part goes together pretty easily, but the plates on the back are another story. They end up being a little bit on the fiddly side. The channel Velocipedium covers these types of bikes quite a lot, and he says these often are just left off the bike. I'm actually a little surprised that they're still with the bike. I figured they would have got lost. So here I'm putting the pie plate back on, which is pretty simple. I'm not sure exactly what orientation this is supposed to be in, and I actually end up changing it because after putting it on here, you can see that it does have a rub, and yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the rub is coming from, but eventually I do resolve it. And here I'm cleaning the hub. I'm just using a rag that's got some residual solvent on it, and just kind of getting rid of some of the oil and that's kind of built up on the hub. One of the pedals was missing a nut that was attaching these bars on, and so I found a nut that fit it and put it on there. So I use some simple green on a rag to clean the spokes, and this is something I typically do. Sometimes I use steel wool, but this seemed to work pretty good. Moving to the front wheel, one of the spokes was very loose, and I put some tri-flow on it initially and let it set in, and I was able to break the nipple free and tighten it up. The front wheel was in much better shape than the rear wheel, so it ended up turning out much cleaner. It's unfortunate the back wheel had so much rust on it, but there was some spots on the edge of the rim, and so I use a Dremel to touch those up. And then follow up the Dremel with some steel wool to kind of make it look a little bit more uniform and just kind of remove some of that excessive material. And then work on the spokes as I did in the back. The front spokes were quite a bit cleaner. After removing the paint using solvent, I used some polishing compound to kind of further remove a little bit of residuals and clean up the frame. I wasn't really going for a super polished look because I think overall the bike is never going to be in really newish condition, so there's no point in trying to polish up one area too much. I used rust converter, which I typically do on bikes, to convert that rust to kind of a darker material, and it looks a little bit better. Here I'm trying to polish up the bars a little bit more, trying to remove some of that rust, but that really is places where the chrome has been removed from the surface, and so there's really only so much you can do with that. Here I'm adding oil to the rear hub, and there's just a little cap you flip up, and then I'm just using 30 weight oil and adding that. I ended up adding probably about 10 milliliters of oil total, and I don't know if it really changed that much, but I figure I'm kind of doing a little bit of a service. I don't know if the oil I used is right, but there was a lot of different opinions on this online, so I just chose what I had. And the bottom bracket too has a little oil port you flip up, and I add the same 30 weight oil to that, and I added a little less this time. I added probably about 5 milliliters. And the front hub, you kind of flip over this clip, and there's a little spot to add oil here, and again I think I only add like 3 milliliters to this. Adding oil as lubrication, I guess, seems a little archaic, but this bike has been around for a long time, so it must work. I found some used grips in my stock that fit the bike better than those red ones that were on it whenever it first came in, and they're nice and thick and comfy, and they don't look too new. So that's all the service on the bike. Now I'm going to move on to doing a test ride.
Well, she definitely rides pretty nice. Seems to shift pretty well. I guess you really need to stop pedaling when you want to do a smooth shift with these Sturmy Archers, I guess. I don't know, I don't have a lot of experience with them. Yeah, it seems to shift fine as long as you don't put a lot of pressure on the pedals. think that's just the way they are. I'd say the seat is probably at the end of life. It's a little bit of, I feel the rivets a little bit on the back corners. So yeah, it's probably time to change that. I'm gonna try tightening up, doing an adjustment on it, but I kind of think it's probably just the material. It rides pretty quick for what it looks like. I'd say if this was my size, I might consider keeping it, but this is a 21-inch frame. They made a 23-inch frame, which I think is my size. Definitely doesn't handle as smoothly as some of my other bikes, as far as like, well, doesn't handle quite as crisply. So here's some action footage of the bike, you know, showing it kind of close up in operation. It rides pretty smooth. I'm really impressed by it. I really didn't know if I was going to be able to turn this bike into something that was a decent rider, and I think I've had success with that. We've had a pretty wet summer, particularly lately, and so I had to go out in a day that it had rained overnight and it was still a little wet, but I had some fenders on the bike, so it was kind of you know, still a pleasant experience. And there's just some glamour shots here of it. This is a road that the Katuitt Water District uses to get to their pump stations. This is a pretty nice place to do some filming like this because I don't have to worry about cars on the road, since the only vehicles that use this are the Katuitt Water District vehicles. And I'm going to do a little bit of off-road riding here, and you know, it does okay for a little bit short stretches. I don't think I'd want to go very long off-road with it. Definitely has a big turning circle compared to a 26-inch mountain bike. This has 26-inch wheels on it. It's for cruising. Does that really well. If you're in a really hilly place, I think you'd really have to build up some leg muscles to get it around. I don't think I would really want to go on a 20-mile ride with this around here. But going down into town, down to the water, something that would be perfectly fine for that. It seems like it's almost geared for too much speed, but that's top gear right there. Now we're coming up the hill. And just got to take a little pressure off the pedals. You don't even have to stop pedaling. You just have to take the pressure off when you're doing the shift, and it'll do fine. Otherwise, it jams. I think these oiled bearings and bottom bracket are actually pretty nice. I mean, considering this is a 50s bike, and who knows if it's ever been apart. It's pretty smooth. We gave it that oil up, and yeah, it operates pretty well. I'd go 20 miles in this if it was flat, maybe with a better seat, new seat. So now I have a series of clips just showing the bike, you know, after, you know, the end result of it. And
I would say that, you know, I probably spent 5 to 8 hours. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't film. You know, there's little details here and there, and then some iterative processes that, you know, just don't make it up on film. And but overall, I think it turned out okay. I don't think I did anything amazing in this, but I think it is a nicer bike to ride, and it has a nicer appearance. That flat black look just doesn't really do it for me, and now it looks like a classic old bicycle that's been used a lot, but it's still functional and usable. I ended up adding tension to the seat, and that seemed to make it more comfortable. But it still has that oily feel. I added some paste wax, and that seemed to help that you know, the transfer. But it definitely stains shorts if you wear light shorts. Mine already had stains anyway, so I didn't care. I think the frame turned out okay. I got most of the paint off of it, but there's probably a little bit residual. I didn't really try on the fenders themselves. I just knew they were probably on the rusty side, and it was just going to be a lot of work. And the wheels, the rear wheel is kind of rough. The front one's actually not too bad. So I'm going to be bringing this bike to the thrift store this week and putting a price tag on it and having it for sale, and probably maybe before this video comes out, and hopefully someone will appreciate it for what it is and take it home and keep it on the road. So that does it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.